So most of the time, as you said, most of the guests weren't science oriented. We would bring a skateboarder on the show or a famous dancer or something like that. People that just have their own world, and I think the most fun part was to show them their own world in a way that they couldn't see themselves, right? If they're a famous dancer, they've been dancing for 30 years, but they never saw themselves in slow motion, they're immediately going to notice things that they wouldn't have ever been able to see in themselves. And so that was where the most fun came from.
हेलो दोस्तों, स्वागत है आप लोगों का एक बार फिर से। और ये आखिरी बार, पहली बार ही और आखिरी बार मैं इस पॉडकास्ट में हिंदी बोल रहा हूँ, क्योंकि भाई इस बार जो मेरे साथ हैं। और हाँ, let me just come to the English part because someone is here on my podcast. I am a really big fan of him, and if you have watched Discovery Channel in like 2010 era, like you're that kid, then you will be knowing him way much better. And you know him by his show. You know him like the coolest guy that we have seen in the on our TV. So let me just introduce you because I've fumbled a lot while introducing this person. We will be knowing him by in person, and we will be knowing the different layers of his life and how just not from the television point of view, but what real him is. So let me just introduce you, ladies and gentlemen, Jeff Lieberman. So Jeff,
Hey,
welcome to my show. And
thanks,
how are you?
Shiva. Yeah, great. Thanks for having me. Doing well this morning. And yeah, just looking forward to having a chance to hang out.
Very well. एक तो मैं बहुत excited हो रहा हूँ, and I don't know why I'm just coming to Hindi. I'm just trying to be a person like I'm trying to be talking in English, but you can just pardon me for some of the Hindi lines. So let's just start. Okay. So first of all, how was your lockdown? So since we all have been gone through two lockdowns in India, we had three. We had two lockdowns. Recently we had one, and last year. So how was your lockdown? So
Yeah, all things considered, it's been good. I've been really lucky because a lot of the work that I do can happen over a computer through video conferencing and that sort of thing. So that's really lucky. And I've been potted up with, people that I'm close to, so that I've been able to keep, in social communication with people. And in fact, in several times be in groups, large groups of people where everyone has done their work to make sure they're safe. And then, up to 40 people have been able to spend a week together and be safe with proper monitoring. So that's been treating me really well. I feel really lucky about that. And then I guess the other thing about it is that things like lockdown, I think of kind of like the seasons. There's times when you go out and it's summer, and then there's times when you come in the winter and kind of hibernate. And I think those seasons have their advantages. And so I've taken a lot of this time to do more introspection on what I want to be doing over the next years and start to find the next plans. And I'm right now starting up a new business, and those things, I don't know if they would have ever happened without lockdown. So it's a shift in mind.
basically, the lockdown have made you like given you a chance to make new plans for your
Yeah,
future.
yeah,
Nice,
totally.
nice,
Yeah,
nice.
how has it been for you?
I just it's like from being a regular YouTuber to an interviewer. Like I'm interviewing people like you. So lockdown has been like that only. So lockdown has given me a medium, Zoom. Like I can connect with people from anywhere in the world from my room itself. So it's just
From
amazing.
outer space.
From outer space. Yes. Stop heckling me.
No, I should switch mine. I'll meet you
No,
there.
no. It's your background is pretty cool. Okay. So Jeff, whenever I take your name or your personality, whenever we talk about anything related to you, the person who don't know you in person, so there's just one thing that comes in our mind is Time Warp, the show that you were the part of, and like the person started, you guys have started a new revolution, like showing things in slow motion on a TV show. That wasn't a regular thing, and wasn't like in 2010s there was no smartphones and smart and nobody would have like a personal camera to shot those slow motion pictures. So how the idea came and how you added to that idea. So what was your role and how Time Warp happened to you?
Yeah, so I was in the middle of grad school, and I guess what a lot of people don't know, I was at MIT, and MIT is the place where slow motion technology was invented, originally in the 40s by a guy named Doc Edgerton. And a lot of people have seen the famous photographs of like a bullet going through an apple or a bullet cutting a playing card in half. And that was all this guy, Doc Edgerton, who developed all this technology. You know, it's almost been 100 years now. And his original lab is still there. So when you take this grad class, I forget what it's called, like technical imaging or something like that, you know, a strobe lab, they call it. And if you take that class, you actually do the research in his original lab. So there's all this old equipment. It's really got that nice like feeling of how you'd make a TV set of an old scientist laboratory. So I learned all that stuff, and I was just going in there in my free time, shooting high-speed photography or videography. And as you said, at the time, we didn't have little slow motion cameras in our pockets. You know, it was a very rare thing to have access to these tools. But I had already been a photographer, and so I was spending a lot of time just building my own work there, you know. And a production company that had already done other shows with Discovery Channel, they had the idea of, hey, let's put together a show about all this technology, all the realms that you can't see with your own eyes. And so pretty naturally, they called MIT to try to get some advice on how to go about it and who should be on it. And, you know, what they needed was a kind of a somewhat rare mix of a person who was a scientist who could talk about the science of what was going on, but then at the same time was an artist, was a photographer who could shoot the imagery, you know. And of course I shot it with Matt and a lot of other people, but that's somewhat rare. It's getting less and less rare, I'm glad to say. But when they called MIT, those people knew me. I'm working with them every week. So they just referred them to me, and I remember exactly where I was. I was just working one day in my grad school research, and phone call just came in, and they said, do you want to host a show about slow motion technology? And it seemed up my alley. So it was a pretty easy choice.
You guys have started a revolution. After that, the shows just came on Discovery Channel and other channels like Speed of Life and all the like, where they are showing the like animal motions in slow motion and all the things. But the starting of that thing was Time Warp. So how, like you told us like how that happened to you, but there was your love of something that we just would like that I would like to discuss. Like there was one thing that you would have done in every episode for every experiment. You have a love for watermelons and water balloons. So you just like for every other experiment, you have just busted a watermelon and a balloon. So where did that came from? Like that love of watermelon.
It's funny. I gotta be honest. That's all mostly about TV. You know, there are certain things that are visually striking, and then there's certain things that aren't, you know, and we tried a lot of stuff that never made it onto air. Wasn't as interesting as we thought, or it was really interesting to people like Matt and myself who wanted to look at every little detail, but it would never make it for a mainstream audience.
let me just interrupt you. Sorry for interrupting, but was Matt just a photographer, or he was also a science guy?
So he basically, at first, he was not intended to be another host. At first, he was actually from the company that we rented all the cameras from, Expert Digital Imaging, I think their name was. And so he came in because he was the only guy who knew how to run all the cameras, because each camera has its own rules and all that sort of thing. And we got a bunch of special cameras, but he was just one of the people I really got along with on the set. And so we ended up spending a lot of time talking, and then that banter of back and forth ended up being interesting enough that it felt like it would create a better environment for the show than just me. There's a lot of shows where it's just like the one person interacting, but it just felt more natural for the two of us to be interacting. So he doesn't have a science as his background, but he's definitely deep in technology. And so it kept our roles clear. I was still the science guy and he was the technical guy. And it was an easy teamwork.
Nice.
It's time for a hoedown. A hoedown? What's a hoedown? Hoedown's a dance.
Who says white guys can't dance?
Get out of here.
So watching all those things in slow motion, what the new thing that you discovered in that show, like during the filming of that show, the series that you have? There were 3 seasons of Time Warp, I guess.
Yeah.
Because on Discovery Channel in India, we just had the episodes. We don't know about the seasons. Like, we just had episodes. Okay, you can enjoy the episodes, please. And let me tell you one thing. I didn't even knew your real voice because I have seen all the episodes in Hindi. So that was
it's all dubbed. It's not with subtitles.
Yes. So
I gotta watch them. You gotta send me a clip.
So what did you learn from that show? Like, what was your learning, maybe in science or in personal life? What was your, like, when you are watching that thing in slow motion? So many things that you might have decoded and that thing, oh, this was something like this, and you just discovered a new phenomenon, like not new phenomenon, but just concept was cleared in your mind. So
Yep.
Does that happen to you on that show?
Yeah, so it's a great question. To give you a little background about kind of the way that TV works, as like a TV production show, it's very dangerous to take big risks. So, we had like sometimes 30 or 40 people on the set doing the recording. It's an expensive show with all the lighting and technology and everything like that. So I think the thing that is easy to forget is that you have to kind of know that when you're showing up in the morning that you're going to get something that is going to be usable at the end of the day. And so almost always that means we've either done our own experiments or we've looked into different research and we have found, okay, if we shoot this, it's going to work and it's going to look like this and it's going to be interesting. And most of the days, that's how you go about it. You know what's been shot out in the world before by researchers and you try to make it more beautiful for a mass audience, So it's very, very rare to be surprised in that sense. You're going to get the individual surprise of the actual clip that you made, but you're not going to be like surprised that it worked in general, because that would be too dangerous for TV budgets and everything. So I would say 99% of the time, you have a good idea about what you're going to get out of the thing. Once in a while you're shooting something that's so fast that your brain can't even imagine what it's going to look like. And there was a couple of days like that. But the one day that I remember the most, that was the most like, one of those moments for me, was when we filmed hummingbirds. And when we filmed hummingbirds, we had a thing called a fluoroscope, which is basically like a real-time X-ray. And we used high speed to film the fluoroscope. So we were slow motion X-ray, which is very rare. Very rare to see. And everyone has seen a video of a hummingbird just like floating there completely motionless, but its wings are moving 80 times a second. And it's like, how is it so stable? How is its head not moving at all, And when you look under a fluoroscope and you can see inside the body of the hummingbird, we saw this phenomenon that, as far as I know, no one had ever seen until that moment. And it's a little hard to explain, but I'll explain it for a second. So the birds have a thing called a crop, which is like a temporary storage device for the fluid that they are drinking, or the food. I don't know in general, but I just know in hummingbirds, they're just drinking. So it's like right around here on a bird. And when the bird was drinking, it was filling up this crop. It's like a little fuel tank, right, before it's gone into the stomach. And what we saw in the fluoroscope was that as it's moving back and forth, the fluid in the crop was sloshing back and forth to stabilize the head. And if you know anything about like building design these days, when they make huge skyscrapers that are near earthquake zones, they put these big masses that can swing back and forth so that the building won't, tumble. And we saw that a hummingbird had evolved that in its own body. It had evolved this like fluid stabilizer. So that was something that was totally surprising. And I don't know how we ever would have seen something like that without all this crazy technology.
Like you just discovered that thing. That was pretty good. And I would like to know about the research part that you guys have done for the show. Like, because on TV, or maybe for the mass audience, if you are making something, you should be scientifically correct, because if you are making a science show, so you should be scientifically correct. So what was the amount of research that you guys have done? And while collaborating with the people not from the science background, like the yo-yo guy, the parkour people, and somebody like from like firefighters. So you guys have done all the episodes, most of the episodes with the people who are connected to science, but are not actually connected to theoretical science, or they don't know the theory of science. So what was the research that you have done for the episodes, and how it was implied on that, on those people's, how you have collaborated with them?
Yeah, so most of the time, as you said, most of the guests weren't science oriented. We would bring a skateboarder on the show, or a famous dancer or something like that. People that just have their own world, and I think the most fun part was to show them their own world in a way that they couldn't see themselves, right? If they're a famous dancer, they've been dancing for 30 years, but they never saw themselves in slow motion, they're immediately going to notice things that they wouldn't have ever been able to see in themselves. And so that was where the most fun came from. I would say the science from someone who was a physicist by training, we would never go very deep on the science, right? It wasn't that kind of show. It was a show to show people that science is in everything and is beautiful. So it was always important to me to never try to get into some science that I wouldn't be able to discuss with the guest. There was no reason to start talking about quantum mechanics in the middle of the thing. It's because we're talking about dancing or yo-yos or something like that. So there's plenty of science around angular momentum or gravitation, or there's very basic concepts that are always showing up in every clip. Like right now, we have plenty of science showing up. So it was much more about trying to meet that person in a way that introduced some new illustrative science to them, something that let us both appreciate the beauty of what was going on. So, we would work with the production team to do a little bit of research sometimes, and a lot of research other times. It really depended on the thing, and so we had a skateboarder. It was like there was no need to do research in advance at all. Just bring the person, let's see what they can do, and let's look at it. And I can just improvise. Here's the science that just came up, or they just did a certain kind of trick, and here's how the torques worked and that sort of thing. So a lot of that was really off the cuff, and only once in a while did we have to really do a lot of work in advance to make sure we had the background for all the things to work for the deeper science to come up.
So let's just take the last question of this part, because we will be moving to your current projects after this. So what was the best thing that you have learned on time warp? on that series, and which episode, or maybe you can say the collection of episodes were your favorite? Like, yes, I will see these episodes like back and forth, and I can just enjoy these episodes. And have you noticed yourself, like, from back then, from 2010 and 11, and now you are like a bit changed person? So you have grown up from there, and you told us that you were picked up from the MIT, and you were in your graduate school. So how, just when you rewatch, have you rewatched your show?
It's been a long time. I haven't seen it in a long time. Yeah,
So,
I haven't seen a full episode probably in like 8 years or something like that.
apart from that question, I would like to ask you, do you have a stupid memory from that show?
Stupid memory.
Like, first, just let us know about your favorite episode and the stupid memory.
Stupid memory. Well, yeah, I'll start with my favorite segment. My favorite segment, well, no question, really. We had a fluid photographer on the show named Martin Waugh, who shoots water droplets.
That droplet part, and just went down, and just show in that episode that we showed that drop goes in, and then there one drop that comes out, and then it falls down. Best.
Yeah, so you know that episode. So that was one of those days where I had seen that guy's photography years earlier, just on the web. And I was like, this guy shoots like the most beautiful stuff I've ever seen in terms of water. And it also hits this perfect thing for an episode, because if I say, hey, I'm going to show you water droplets, you think that it's going to be boring. So you have like an expectation that we can break. And that's the best kind of thing. You know, if you see like most things slow down look like slow versions of the same thing, but something like a water drops, you see a whole new universe. So that was one of those days. I remember when he came to the set and we finished filming everything for the show at like 8 p.m. or something like that. And we sent everyone home, but we actually kept the gaffer, we kept the electrician and the lighting. And we stayed till like 2 or 3 in the morning, just me and him, just shooting more and more stuff, because it was the only chance we were going to have all this equipment.
Could two adults have more fun with a drop of water?
And it was one of those times where like the real love of the getting the photography and getting the videography like really shined through, because we were already done with the show and we were just like, let's hang out all night and keep shooting. That was definitely that, you know. And then in the next season, we had another water drop person, John Bush, who's a professor from MIT that I knew, come on and do more water drop stuff. So if you remember, there was one about water drop streams hitting each other and forming these patterns and, you know, all these amazing fluid effects. So to me, those were the days that were like, you know, the most surprising and beautiful at the same time.
Okay, first drop. Coronet.
Takes a while.
Falls back. Up the spike comes.
I got to think about this stupid memory though.
Maybe getting beaten up by a baseball bat at your stomach or something like that, like vexing yourself.
Well, it's funny when you say it now, I'm thinking about, there's a lot of ways to interpret stupid, you know? So there was one episode that we had where it was like people that did more extreme fighting. I don't even remember if this episode ever aired or not, but we filmed a bunch of people that were, I don't even know what you call it, but like extreme fighters. You know, we had a boxing ring and they were breaking like fluorescent light bulbs on each other and stuff like that, and like getting cut up, and that felt pretty stupid. You know, it wasn't anything that I was specifically doing, but it was just kind of like pain for the sake of pain and for the wow factor of pain, you know, the surprise factor of it. And that's not something that I'm interested in. I mean, it wasn't like I got to choose everything that we filmed for the show. I was just part of a production. So those days were pretty hard for me to like condone and support and spread the message of.
Like I just remember when you were talking about that episode. I don't know if that was aired or not, but there was another episode in which the fighting guy, like the kickboxing guy that you would have done an episode with, that showed that how kickboxing works and how like they were throwing their kicks and punches on each other. That was like that was an experience like for us. Like we were in like 6th, 7th grade and we were watching these cool stuff like and thinking about, yes, I will be doing some cool stuff. I will be taking the science for intermediate and I'll be doing physics for my life. And that was the motivation like that we got from you. So thank you for that, Jeff. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Thank you for being there for us, like motivating us for making science cool for us.
That's really cool to hear. That's like one of the main reasons I wanted to do the show. You know, it's always like people doing science behind closed doors, but to me, it's just a beautiful thing. You're looking for patterns and you're studying and you have a certain mechanism to look for patterns in the universe. So that's a pretty beautiful thing. And I feel like I use it all the time, just in my own experience, you know, testing what life is like for myself. So yeah, that's beautiful to hear that it was contagious in some way.